Hello. Hello, Angela. Hi, Donna. Excuse me. Okay, isn't this interesting? Good morning, Carrie. Dawn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's so interesting because as I'm coming into this live stream with the topic, 11 years ago today, I left the US, and that began the journey of a lifetime. And there was no Wi-Fi here. There still is no Wi-Fi. And I'm just like, I've been staying at this place a few weeks. Of course, this is the first time this has happened where go to log in, Wi-Fi is just, there's problems and issues and I can't use it. So I've had to connect through my phone hotspot and I have no idea how much data I have remaining. Doing these live streams takes a lot of, gigabytes. So here's hoping there is enough. And what a wonderful, symbolic way to start. Talking about living overseas and living digitally, living as a nomad, because this is the kind of thing that I've been dealing with for 11 years now. So how interesting. And before we dive into that, we'll give a few moments for people to join in. Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you. And there's nothing to do but trust and follow the flow that the internet will sustain this live stream session. And it is what it is. So I'm super excited to be here with you all today. Please say hello if you are new, if it's your first time joining in with me. Happy to have you, and of course all of my lovely community. So happy to be here with you today. So I am Natalie. I'm a spiritual life coach and Reiki master teacher. And the purpose of this live stream is, I like to share my life with others and use it to inspire, as well as, share my personal journey. And this day is a milestone for me. I'd say and I would ask you, do you have certain dates in your life that are just, you remember every year, aside from a birthday or something, that you acknowledge and become part of your life? And this is what this date is for me. So my first milestone date is the date I got clean and sober, February 1st, 1999. And for similar but different reasons, that's important. And this date, March 23rd, which in Bali, it's March 23rd, 2013, is the date that I left everything I ever knew in the US and moved overseas. So, hi, Kiana. Nice to see you. Glad you're able to join in. I was hoping that I would see you here as you embark on a journey yourself soon. So yes, if you are new to me, before we dive deeper, don't forget to follow me here on Insight Timer. This is being recorded, will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. You can watch the replay there. Please follow me there, Facebook, Instagram, check out my website. I'm also going to be, stay tuned for some more information on my group coaching program around money mindset and creating abundance and releasing scarcity and lack around finances and money in your life. So stay tuned for more information on that, as well as I will be uploading to my premium Insight Timer tracks a new track I've just received back from my audio mixing editor. And it's a meditation on deep surrender that will be in my premium area. And you can check out my free ones that I have and my premium track that I already have as well. And you can join my group, Natalie's Healing Circle, here as well. Hi, is it Dimonte? Nice to see you. Hi, Faye. Welcome. Yes, so the purpose of this is to, acknowledge the date and also look at, my own personal journey. And then what I want you all here to have ears for and listen for is what insights can you take away from my story that you can apply to your own life to inspire you. And think about who I had to be and the actions I had to take and the mindset I had to have in order to create what I did. And think about where in your life you feel stuck and blocked, to where this sort of a mindset or energy is missing, right? And we'll dive into that as it comes up. But I feel like that will be really powerful for those of you that feel like you have somewhere you want to be in your life and you feel stuck or blocked or feel like you can't do it, or something like that, which is very common for us humans. That's why the comfort zone, even that term, everyone knows it. So it's all about getting out of your comfort zone, which is what I did. And also, I'm going to share vulnerably, I assume, because I try to do that anyway, to also show the humanness of the journey, and also how life, going from A to B is not a straight line, or not, a linear path, that it's filled with ups and downs and setbacks and etc. So please jump in with questions, comments, of course. And also join me, don't forget, tomorrow, whenever tomorrow is for you, join me for our Saturday Night Live session. I'm going to just check the time on that. Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern. So I was thinking this morning, reflecting on where to begin, and I was thinking about where I was 12 years ago, like 12 years ago today, generally where I was. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now. I don't know how much that is in kilos. I'm now in kilos since I don't live in the US, but it was a lot bigger than I am. I was on antidepressants, which I had just gotten back on after being off of them for 10 or more years and telling myself I would never go back on antidepressants again. And then I went back on them because it seemed like the only option at the time. I was married to a wonderful person, and also there were issues. I mean, I'm very human, just like we all are. We had our stuff, we had our issues. I had a job where it was okay, And also I drove to work the same way, every day. Already I had been at that job for 4 years, and I just really felt the futility of my life. I felt like I just was living for the weekend, living for the next paycheck. I was, I never had any money, which is interesting now that I look back, because, I was in a marriage and we had two incomes, but yet, like, I remember always, like, my baseline in my checking account was like $200. So somehow after every paycheck, I would just be back to 200. I mean, there was no saving. And there had been a big issue in my marriage, and we were quite far apart, due to some things that happened. Yeah. And y'all that know me a bit know about my journey with food and sugar addiction. And so when I mentioned the weight, the sugar addiction was out of control. That was sort of my escape from the futility that you hear me describing. And it was quite bad. I mean, I was the heaviest I'd been since I had been pregnant, which had been a long time before. But I was like at almost a full pregnancy weight, but I was not pregnant. The sugar addiction just ruled my life. Every night, would binge, and then every morning I would say, I'm never doing this again. Today is day one. And I'd already been in that cycle for years. So it was super painful. And if, those that follow me know, I've talked a lot about that part of my journey as well. I know some of you in here have struggled with that. And that I've helped some of you with that issue as well. I've done group programs around sugar addiction before. So, yeah, can anyone relate to any aspect of what I'm saying? And it might not be like the details, but the feeling state, the state of being, where I just felt trapped in my life. And not that aside from the deep emotional things that were, quote, wrong, I just, I had a lot to be grateful for, and yet I wasn't, because I was in an addiction, really. And I was in a state of deep dissatisfaction. And I was thinking too about my meditative life, my spiritual life. I was a spiritual person at that time, a spiritual being. But yet I hadn't yet found the discipline to meditate daily. It just wasn't it didn't seem accessible to me. Has anybody had that happen? How many of you have like a daily, like you meditate every day no matter what? And how many of you don't and wish you did? How many of you have tried? Thank you, Angela, Nina. Hello. Hi, Keela. Welcome back. Yeah, so I was in a place like Nina's saying, I knew the benefits of it, and yet it didn't feel accessible to me to meditate daily. It just was like, that's too huge of a goal. So, yeah. So Angela said, you still can't do daily. I would I get that, and also I would challenge that you're choosing not to. It's not that you can't. even, and when I talk about this with people, I say just start with 1 minute. It's possible. So it's not a matter of ability, it's a matter of choice. So thank you for bringing that in. Hi, Britt. I think some of the messages are maybe not coming in exactly on. So that was a picture of my life. I don't want to go into a ton of, because I could get really bogged down into the next step, but that's where I was. I feel like that's a pretty clear picture of where I was at that time. I just didn't see that there could be anything really more possible for me, aside from I wanted to give up the addiction. I wanted to lose weight. Obviously, I wanted to give up the addiction. I wasn't happy in my job, but it was good enough. We lived in a countryside area. The economy sucked. There wasn't good jobs around. I didn't have, traditional skills where I was much of a resource for companies, so I didn't have that asset. So, yeah, I had goats. We had goats. My goats were my life. Wait a minute. Okay, the internet dipped a bit. So my goats were my one place where I came alive. Can any of you relate to that with pets, or maybe a hobby, or maybe it's your children, etc., something like that. So I was deeply, my goats were my children. And so all of my, and it's yes, I love them and that's great. And also I was too consumed with them, and it was a form of escape for me. I was obsessed. I was obsessed with them getting sick. And again, it's a balance of okay, and also there was some avoidance going on. It wasn't a healthy balance. And I had a lot of suffering that I created myself from my worry about my goats, because they're not easy to raise in the U.S., American South. They're very delicate creatures as far as parasites and management. So anyway, but some of y'all can relate. Jessica, Angela, Britt. So that's where I was. And now here I sit today, and then let's go to a year later. So March 23rd, 2013, I was in Denver, Colorado, visiting my sister. I had left North Carolina, and I was visiting my sister in Denver, and about to leave everything to get on a plane to move to South Korea. So that's where I was today, 11 years ago exactly. And I talked to my sister the other day, and we were reflecting, because she took me to the airport. And I remember being in her minivan, her driving me to the airport, getting on a plane to LA, changing terminals, and then getting on the longest flight I'd ever taken, 13 and a half hours from LA to Seoul, and meeting my boyfriend there. So he was an English teacher in North Carolina. Well, he was an English teacher in Korea. When he was home, we met. He went back there. I joined him. So that was what led me to take the leap to go overseas. So I had an affair on my husband. So from that picture I painted of where I was the year before events transpired, I had an affair. And then I chose to leave everything I'd ever known to be with this person. I don't want to justify or make excuses or rationalizations for what I did. I did what I did. Of course, I regret that I, broke the trust of the marriage and that commitment. And also, life is life. It is like not black and white, because from that unfolding, which is a picture with a lot of grays, there's no excuse for what I did, and also it's what led me here. It's a part of my story. So if you have any judgments about that, that's fine. You can have those. Of course, there's still judgment on myself about it. It's gotten a lot less over the years, and it's still there. There's still a part where that stings. I don't know if that'll ever go away. And that is what happened. And every like unfolding after that has led me to be here right now. And I know I am much happier, and my ex-husband is much happier, and it's just the story as it is. What was required of me to go from the sugar addicted, stuck, futile energy, hopeless, feeling like, is this all there is, to getting on a plane a year later, was I had a burning desire to join this, this partner. There was so many obstacles to overcome for me to do that. And I'm not saying they were like bestly intended or the best energy. And also, is there anybody here that can relate to falling in love, wanting to move mountains and the sea to be with your person? And thank you, Kiana, Jessica, Nina, Ann. Thank you, Nancy. And I made it happen. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. How many of you know who that is in that book? He has like 13 steps to achieve your goal. The number one base of everything is you must have a burning desire for what you want to achieve. I had a burning desire. Angela, I know a bit of your story, and you were in my head as I was sharing a bit of that. Yeah, you left your country also. It can be easy to go into more three-dimensional ways of looking at this, of like good, bad, black, white, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, and also it is what it is. If y'all follow me, and even if you get my email newsletter, my last newsletter I sent out was about the nothing wrong with you concept that we're working so much on in here in the live streams, in the book, There's Nothing Wrong with You. From my own coach and my own work with my coach, he gave me this clearing exercise that I shared with those in my newsletter. And it's all about coming out of context of good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't. And it doesn't mean like it's about, oh, well, we can just, justify actions and behavior. And also, this is an event in the past that cannot be changed. So anything in your past that you may have judgment about or energy around, in whatever way that might be, see where you're in a context of good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't. And then the invitation is to drop that. Because the past cannot, there's nothing to be done. And also, it's not, it's not all bad. It's not, I'm bad for what I did and that's it. There's many layers, there's many, subtleties, there's many ways to look at it. And we can apply whatever, spiritual ideas that may be, from karma and past lives. And at the end of the day, it's what do we want to create moving forward. So I've done a lot of work with myself around this. Sure, there's still energy, and also, I don't regret leaving the U.S. 11 years ago today. I can tell you that much. And I'm not that person anymore, honestly. What Joe Dispenza says, he says, the past without the emotional charge is wisdom. And I am not that person. I can love that version of myself. I can have compassion for her, empathy, understanding, and also wisdom. I am a person of much greater integrity today. I don't do those things anymore. I don't cheat anymore. So if we can use whatever it is in our past as fuel to change and do something different, then we become an example for others. If we stay in the problem, then we become like a tragic example, or an example of missed potential or unused opportunity or potential. If we use our past, if we overcome it, if we better ourselves, then we can inspire others. Because I know I'm not the only one here who has done things that I've mentioned. You don't have to volunteer if you have, but I'm confident that out of 64 people, there's been one at least that has cheated or had an affair. And again, it's not about justifying it. It's just about being human. So that's where I was. Yeah. So if we're open, discomfort leads to growth. If we hide the shadow, if we push this down, if we deny, then that keeps the shame and guilt and regret and blame and shit story alive. When we bring this to the light of day within our own awareness and our own selves, it doesn't mean we have to, disclose it to everyone. But then there can be healing. Hi, Tony. So, yeah. And you're standing on the shoulders of every past version of you. So I'm standing on the shoulders of that Natalie who did the best I could in that moment at that time with where I was, and the mindset I had, and the values and the integrity that I had at that time. And even the Natalie yesterday, her last week, I'm standing on her shoulders. so I can bless her and thank her for doing the work that has led me to sit here. And, you know, tomorrow and the Natalie next week and next year, we'll look back with compassion at this version of self. Thanks, Keela. Yeah. So I was trapped in a not the best job. I took my job remotely. I asked, how many of you have a job or like something at your work where you're like afraid to ask because you're afraid to get a no? Has anybody, like, you give yourself a no, you'll say, oh, they would never say yes. So you say no and then leave it there without just taking the next step and asking for the no. You give it to yourself and then shutting off the opportunity. Oh, there's the staff. Angela. So here's an example where I didn't do that. I asked my company, can I work remote? I was already working from home twice a week, which also was another ask a few years before. And I asked if I could be 100% remote. They said yes. If I wasn't driven by this desire, as Napoleon Hill states, I would have just been like, well, they'll never say yes, so I'm just going to quit my job. Or they'll never say yes, so I'm just going to not go. But I had a vision, and I asked, and they said yes. So that's another demonstration of courage outside the comfort zone. And so today I sit here with you now 11 years later from embarking on a plane. Somewhat single, not in a committed partnership at this time. Not in that job anymore, and y'all that know me know the story of that dramatic unfolding. I have my own business for over 3 years now. It's like the levels of freedom that I have created over the years have exponentially grown, and this is just the beginning. 10 years ago, I did a Deepak and Oprah 21-day meditation challenge. Who remembers those? Do they still do those? And that started my journey on meditating every day. And I found Insight Timer 10 years ago around that time. At that time, it was a timer, and also they had guided meditations. That's all I think they had. So 10 years ago in May, I moved to Bali. I might have a little Bali live on that, because that's another special day. I started meditating every day 10 years ago. It was very difficult. It was a commitment. And so over the years, the journey of creating myself and committing to meditating every day, I am now a person that meditates every day. So it's in the process of who we become in all of this, the becoming and the unbecoming. My bank account, remember I mentioned if you think about your bank account like through your life, you may notice there's always like a sort of a general set point, whatever that may be. when I was an active alcoholic and drug addict, I mean, it was very low, if anything at all. But it has gone way beyond living paycheck to paycheck, ending up with $200 surplus. So isn't it interesting, and think about yourself, like for me, for my journey, how when I changed, how interesting, my bank account balance just naturally changed. And again, that's also a journey. But it was interesting, even when I had the same job and I went to work remote, that my balance grew to where then I had savings and surplus. Yeah. So if anyone is, Angela says, still having that paycheck to paycheck, and it's, again, like taking away judgment about it, it is, and then the question becomes, what do you want to do about it? Because from me, coming from a place of under earning, it feels like it's something that happened to me, or that happens to me, that I don't have control or choice over, when actually it's not true. So that's another part of this evolution of who I've become, is becoming a person more of choice and empowered. So even having that recognition is powerful, Angela. So, the person you are, all of you, and the person I am, are all a result of the choices that we've made up until now. Hey, Jamie, welcome. And hi, Jay. Did I say hi to you already? I don't remember. Anyone else who's joining in? So, you can see, for me to get where I am has taken many choices and actions that came from a burning desire and an intention. Some of my decisions have been made by, what is the words I'm trying to use? A life by design, or a life by, happening in circumstance? Which one are you in? And for me, it was kind of like a default energy. How many of you have lived at times, or mostly, or currently, like a default life based on whatever, responding to whatever's happening, versus a life by design that you choose and create? Thank you, Jamie. Yeah. So I feel like for me, this journey, as gray, imperfect, messy, up and down, has been a journey of, just working with myself and owning my power. And that's what I help my clients do with my coaching and the life coaching that I do. We are all powerful and at choice. It's just we have this disconnect where it's like, wait, did I really do that? Or no, that just happened to me. But it's like, no, I created it. I did that. I created this life. So what do you want to create? You've created everything up until now, whether it's by default or design. Yeah. So this is powerful because you're all powerful creators. It's just about the recognition and the owning of that. And really waking up to that potential that's within you. Hi, Kyler. Right on time. Hi, Tasha. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Addiction it's not an easy thing to deal with. Awesome, Angela. Yeah, so I'm glad you said that, Angela, feeling like making progress and slide back to the comfortable. It is not a linear journey. So how about, and I mean, I still can have that, and any of you that can relate to that, how about seeing that it's not meant to just be 100% forward action every minute. As long as you're making progress, I said this recently, that's what we look for. What feels good, making progress. So after I moved to South Korea, I lived there for a year. The only reason I even had a passport, y'all, so I was 36 when I left the US. And this was my mindset around world travel and life travel was it's too expensive and it's not accessible for me. That was my mindset. The only reason I had a passport was when we went on our honeymoon for 2 weeks, and that was the only time I had ever been out of the country. So I had this passport I had never used except for once, 7 years before. So 11 years ago today, I moved across the world into something completely and utterly brand new. And it was exhilarating, of course, for a bit. Honeymoon period with the relationship and with living in a completely new environment. And then after a few months, of course, bless my heart, I brought myself with me, I realized, which I had done what in AA we call geographical cures many times before in the US. But I brought myself with me, and there was challenges and struggles. I had a lot of baggage I brought with me as a result of my actions. And I was already an expert at shaming and blaming and guilting myself anyway. So, yeah, I did a lot of damage to myself and, of course, to others. And also, that was the journey. Ooh, interesting, Nina. Same age as I was. So I brought that in because it's just I just thought this is the life I'm destined for, is to live this, what felt small for me. It might be somebody's dream life, but it wasn't my dream life. I mean, my dream, everyone has their own. The life I was living would be some people's dream life. But I did not feel alive. And although that whole situation was really created from default, everything was always working out for me. my favorite Abraham Hicks saying. Although I didn't know it at the time, I was just defaulting along, reacting and responding from a very low place. If you caught me at the beginning, saying where I was, 40 pounds overweight, in a horrible sugar and food addiction, in a futile job and situation, lots of marriage problems, just dissatisfied, then, the events unfolded and I made choices. And I brought myself with me to Korea. Thank you, Tasha. So I went to Bali 10 years ago in May, which was a pivotal moment. And Bali brings up all your stuff. It has a reputation for a reason. So it brought up all my shadow. And I had a deep, painful as fuck healing journey here. Broke up with the boyfriend. I'm having a long story be very short. And I was still not making good choices for myself, and I was still, doing my best and defaulting along. And then I created an experience where a dog bit me on my face here in Bali, and I had to have emergency plastic surgery in 2015. And again, like each of these little events, I could tell you a whole story about, and I don't want to get bogged down. I want to. So the significance of that event was I was hospitalized 5 times in 8 weeks, and I basically had what I call a nervous breakdown. I wasn't diagnosed by anyone as that, but just myself. I couldn't handle life. It was a very difficult time period for me. It ended up with me leaving Bali and leaving my expat life at that time. It was a really hard bottom that I hit emotionally. And so I moved back to the US and moved in with my mother. That was really the only option I could see from that state of being in that low place, which was a terrible idea, and also it was the journey that it was. And again, I was doing my best. And thanks, Jamie. Glad to see you here. So when I came back to the US at that time, interestingly, through a chain of events, I ended up being invited to do a life transformational training in Southern California a few months later. I remember having this moment of like, okay, I need to make a choice on this. Like, I need to say yes or no to this. And I was terrified. I'd never done any sort of retreat, like flying across the country, investing, thousands of dollars. It was a big deal. And I said yes, even though I was terrified, because my intuition was like, there was something there. I didn't know what it was, but I knew my results from my life. And yes, sure, I'd had mixed results. I wanted something different, and I had just come off this horrible experience with the dog bite. And even just still the wreckage of the past that I'd created. So I did it. I said yes. I trusted the unknown. I went to this life transformational training, and it was life transformational. I was so scared. And what my takeaway from that was, is that's where I was introduced to Joe Dispenza. Just by my buddy in the retreat. But as I got more hindsight, I could see that because the dog bit me on my face here, so that's why I'm like pointing to that. I could see that this experience, although when I was in it, like the actual day of the event was what in the moment, I'm like, this is like the worst day of my life, or top 3. With some hindsight and some perspective, I could see how even that was there to help me, although it was a terribly painful, disastrous shit show of an unfolding. With the help of the people in that organization, which was similar to Landmark. Has anybody done Landmark? Hi, Wendy. I recreated myself. If anyone wants a deep transformation, I would definitely recommend like a Landmark style life transformational training. Ooh, Jamie went to an intro. Thank you, Tasha. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Not allowing any singular moment to define me. It's true. Hi, Heidi. Nice to see you. Been a while. Hi, Lady Peacock. Thank you. If you are just joining in, don't forget to follow me here on Insight Timer. Watch the replay on my YouTube. Subscribe there. Follow on Facebook and Instagram. Reach out if you want to set up a one-on-one session with me. You can learn my offerings. Follow that heart call. Like, I really followed a heart call to do that transformational retreat. And it changed my life. I healed so much. I started doing the Joe Dispenza meditations every day. I ended up, like, I created meeting Elizabeth Gilbert, Michael Beckwith, and Marianne Williamson, all in the space of a few months. Amma, the hugging saint, my Indian guru. This is where the vision for me to step up bigger and bolder into the world really started to take shape. I moved to Mexico. I started, just through an unfolding, I started leading guided meditations at a couple yoga places in Mexico where I was living. The feedback on those were amazing. I started to see a vision of how all of this stuff, lower vibrational, choices and survival, choices in lower vibrational living, could be used to help others, could be used as fuel, that I didn't have to be ashamed of my story or who I was, because I was becoming a different person. The past without the emotional charge is wisdom. When we change, then we can look back at that past self with compassion. I've always been a writer. I got a vision to write a book called The Pink Cloud Effect. It had a bit of a different idea, at the time, the memoir. It was going to be a memoir. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We're getting close on time, so I'm just highlighting the recaps of what happened as a result of me making that big bold leap and that investment in myself and that transformational training. And there was group coaching. I'd never had a life coach. I didn't even get this whole thing. I was immersed. I didn't know, I don't know. It's interesting now that I'm a life coach. Looking back, I'm like, oh, I had a coach and I was getting coaching, and the concept wasn't really solidified, but I got benefits, so that was all that mattered. I ended up meeting somebody in LA when I was living there. A great partner, spiritual. In this relationship, I didn't fall in love. It was the first time. It was a choice. Have y'all ever heard the idea of, instead of falling in love, rising into love? I rose into love with him. It wasn't a relationship based solely on just bodily chemistry and those energies being the main focal point in the beginning. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I know for me, whatever. There's better ways to there's more higher vibrational ways of being. Thank you, Heidi. Wow. Awesome. Great. Thank you for sharing that resource here in Insight Timer. Whatever works. We all have our own path and journey. So I unbecame and became through this whole journey and this whole process. I've been messy. I've been small. I've been in victim mindset. I've really struggled. And also, there's been something greater and something bigger, a deeper burning desire for more. And more meaning this sense in my heart and soul, knowing my soul, my inner being, my higher self, my spirit, source, God, whatever you choose, is calling me forward into something greater. And it's doing that for all of us. It's doing that for you. I hope you've been able to listen to this story through the lens of listening as if it's your story. I need to plug this in. And this has been coming up a lot in my coaching and in my own journey of our souls. We came here, and this is again just my belief, I came here to evolve and to progress. I started out, with a really bad alcohol and drug addiction at a young age. I overcame that. I've had many other struggles and difficulties along the way, and there's still more. But I've progressed. And it's not just a linear upward journey. I mean, you can hear it in my story. There's always more to come. We came here for the deliciousness of the expansion and the unfolding. We didn't come here to have it be easy. Michael Singer talks about it, and I heard another teacher say like this exact same thing in a different way recently, of like, oh, and Alan Watts has an amazing story about it. Yeah, I want to tell the Alan Watts version. He said, what if life's a dream? What if every night you go to sleep and you have a dream, and in the dream you can dream to be, do, and have whatever you want? At first, you're going to dream that, you have all the money in the world and you can build the mansions and have the lovers and go to the places and see the things and have the possessions and have all of the amazing, beautiful, fun experiences. And every night you start over and you dream again and you create again. And it's a never-ending dream. He says eventually you get tired and bored of that. And then you would want to have some challenge. So then you might dream that you're created, like you're born dirt poor and you've got to overcome. In that this infinite dream, you live every scenario imaginable. From being a king to a slave to a peasant to a queen to a prostitute and everything in between, to an accountant, to a street sweeper, to a computer programmer, to a life coach. So, yeah, for me, as it sits now, I mean, the person who got on the plane 11 years ago, I love her. I have compassion. She was following her heart. She was doing the best she could. And even the courage it took for her, it took a lot of courage and uncomfortability. And she followed through anyway. When Natalie, the version of Natalie, got bitten by the dog and had the nervous breakdown, and then whose dreams were crushed, having to move back home into the U.S. with my mother. And then she saw this invitation to go across the country and do this training, and the courage, despite the fear, what I did, what that version of Natalie did, and all of the other unfoldings. The courage, another huge turning point that I talk about a lot is with my job, December 21st, 2020. So that would be another top pivotal moment. Thank you, Anne. I didn't really talk about that detail, Jamie, I was with my mom a few months before it blew up into like a teenage after-school special. um, and again, that's another story. Yeah. And if y'all are in the Conversations with God live stream when we're doing that book, I mean, that's what it talks about. God wanted to experience itself, and it could only do that by dividing itself and knowing itself as not God in order to then have an experience to relate to itself. And that's where duality was created. And we must have good, the highs and the lows, the black, the white, the hot, the cold, the rain, the sun. That's why I said that Alan Watts story about the dream. If we're just having peak experiences every night in the dream, we don't appreciate it as much as when we have the lower times. Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate that. Woo! And I'm so excited for you. Well, and I would say you just convinced yourself. I didn't convince you, and also I get what you mean, but you even see like the shift in how powerful even that is. You had an opening and insight and awareness, and then you made a choice. That's empowering. I would love to hear if you want to stay connected or whatever, like even if it's just, I got to remember to tell Natalie after I went to the retreat. I would love to follow up with you on that. So, great, congratulations. And if anyone else has anything that's opening up for them or not, ooh, awesome, Keela. I think, I don't remember, but I think I recalled offering to connect about that in a session because, yeah, I imagine you could hear that I can relate to your story in that sense, in those ways, specifically about, moving abroad, don't know where, I know I can help, so. Yeah, that version of Natalie. And we are all innocent. And kind of for you, and even if you want to look at me, like tuning back into that, okay, yes, the things that I did, they weren't the best, choices that hurt others and myself. And underneath, there's still that innocence that I can connect with, and I can have compassion for that version of myself. Oh yeah, and I was about to say the job moment. So 3 years ago, December 21st, 2020, my job that I had, the same job that I had told you about in the very beginning, I had that job for 12 and a half years until I transformed so much in my energy and who I was that I know it. I vibrated out of that job. And y'all have heard this before, I know, of like when you change, everything changes around you. Relationships leave, jobs change. That's what happened with my job. I had done, so this is another part of the story, and we're a bit over time, so that's why I'm kind of skipping around. And Heidi, I would invite you to watch the replay, and everyone else, if you missed it before, I'm going to just continue as we are, because we're already over time. But yeah, the same job I was in, finally, they told me after almost 13 years, 8 years fully remote, you need to move back to the US or you don't have a job anymore. So that was another pivotal moment. And, even looking back at myself then, I'm so proud of myself. I so acknowledge my courage that I did not stay small and safe and make the small, safe decision that, my mother would have wanted me to make, or society. It was during COVID. It would have been crazy to say, oh yeah, middle of COVID, I'm starting a life coaching business and I'm quitting my stable, good job with benefits. But I could not be out of integrity and out of alignment with myself. My soul just was screaming inside. And I mean, it didn't even have to scream because I was going to listen. There was no way in hell I was going to move back to the US and start working in the office. But a past version of me would have. But the version that had gone on the journey I had up until then and had the transformations I had, it was so out of integrity with who I am, so out of alignment with my values. So I can look back at that moment and acknowledge that version of myself, the courage that it took her to say, again, another total leap into the unknown. I didn't have a lot of savings. I did have savings, so I'd been way better than I was, before I left the US. But it wasn't like I had a year of savings that would be a cushion, no. But I could not, even though I didn't know anything about having a life coaching business. I had no training or certifications as a life coach, which aren't needed, by the way, in my belief. I didn't have any clients. I had only done 2 life coaching sessions the week before this news came. I mean, it's a crazy, amazing story how everything unfolded. But again, I took a leap into the unknown. I trusted the unknown. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know where I would land. It was the middle of COVID. And yet there was something in me that was a burning desire of, I knew I did not want the job option. And so the courage that it took for me to take that leap. And again, like me leaving the country 11 years ago, never regretted it once for a second. Me leaving my job over 3 years ago, never regretted it once for a second. So all of those experiences have led me to be the person I am today. So, and there's always more. So there's a retreat coming up. This is very interesting. I'm just going to share this because, what Anne shared too about the retreat and me talking about what I've talked about. There is a retreat coming up in May where it's the same thing, where this unfolded, this opportunity came, this invitation came, and I'm a projector in human design. If you know anything about that, it means I need to wait for invitations. Basically, there was an unfolding and there was an invitation for me to join this retreat. And it's the same feeling that I had with the other retreat, where it's just like terror and unknown. And fear. And this same feeling inside. So I'm going to meet with somebody today who's been and who's going again. But I feel like this is one of those things where I get to jump again and trust the unknown and dive into the unknown. So I think for some of you, there's something there for you as well. So what is it? It might be a yoga retreat or something else. Hi, other Wendy. Or it may be quitting the job or applying for the job or moving abroad or selling the house or, updating your resume or going on the dating site or joining the gym. What is it for you? I'd love to hear. Please share with me in a private message if you or in the comments. But what action are you inspired to take as a result of hearing my story? And this is actually the perfect thing that life coaching can help with, is getting the support, the clarity, the insights, the accountability to follow through on that vision. So I just got a new client yesterday, super excited to be working with them. And yeah, I continue to be almost full, which is great. And also saying, if you feel like an impulse to talk about the possibility of coaching with me, then follow that. Nice, thanks, Heidi. Yeah. Angela, working towards the life you want. So having a vision that's compelling enough to pull you forward, which is what I had. And sometimes it was the pain of where I was that pushed me forward. How many of you can relate to that? And I've had all of that. So, and even the insight timer, this unfolding is another example of me. I had an impulse 3 years ago next month, and I'll be having an anniversary live, and I'm going to be doing a giveaway for a free gifted session with me. But yeah, my story about how I became a teacher here on Insight Timer is yet another example of having an impulse, having an idea. Ooh, that feels interesting and a bit uncomfortable, and I'm going to do it anyway. And I started with 0 followers. And I had my first guided meditation live stream from Thailand 3 years ago. And I think there was maybe 20 people there, and I didn't know any of them. And here we are. I continued. So consistency. I have been consistent. And yeah, so I'll go into, the unfoldings of that part of the journey deeper in the anniversary live for my Insight Timer. So yeah. So if you haven't already, don't forget to follow me here, everywhere. Catch the replay. It'll be on YouTube. Give a donation if you care to, if you feel that call. I'll be scheduling my live streams for the week soon. I'll do a Nothing Wrong With You for sure, because I had a conflict yesterday, so canceled the live yesterday. I'll see you all tomorrow for sure. please join in. And I'm just so grateful for all of the forces at work here. For me, for my willingness, my humanness, having compassion for that piece of the stuff that I'm not proud of in my journey. I'm grateful that I took actions. I'm grateful that I did the uncomfortable, and I've continued. And I mean, even the person I was when I was in my Joe Dispenza phase, and, I look back on that now, and I was trying to be here. Like, I didn't have a clear vision on what it looked like, but I wasn't quite ready at that time. And yet I needed to go through that whole process to be here. I'm grateful for all the people in my life. Of course, I'm grateful to AA, as I wouldn't have any of this without that, being sober. The people who have loved me, yeah, I believe that I still call him my husband, although we're divorced forever. That he loved me unconditionally. And yeah, that's rare to find, because, my parents weren't capable of that, and that's okay. But I'm glad that I'm grateful for that example and connection. Thank you, Wendy, Heidi. I'm grateful for Bali, for Source, for my guides, my ancestors. For all of my friends and community, and the best is yet to come. And maybe that's possible for you as well. Not maybe, but what if the best is yet to come for you as well? What can you do to take that first step? And who would you get to be? Like, I always go back to that. Steve Hardison, my favorite coach, that's all he talks about. Who are you being? What do you want to create, and who do you get to be to create that? I got to be courageous in the face of fear and the unknown. Committed to taking action, doing the uncomfortable. Had to be willing, open, forgiving of myself and others, mostly myself, trusting, surrendering, free, looking for possibility, faith, being in faith, giving, committed, creative. Those are the energies in which this story is being painted by. So what is your story being painted by? What energies? And the good news is you're in charge of that, and you can create that, and then from that you can create your canvas. See you all tomorrow. Much love. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.